Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 8, Text 31, and today we'll also do Text 32. Text 31. Munaya Padavin Yasya Nisanghe Noru Janmabhi Navidur Mrigayantopi Tivra Yoga Samadhina Munaya Padavim Yasya Nisange Noru Janmabhi Navidur Mrigayantopi Tivra Yoga Samadhina Munaya Padavim Munaya Padavim Yasya Nisange Noru Janmabhi Navidur Mrigayantopi Tivra Yoga Samadhina. Anyone would like to try? Munaya Padavim Yasya Nisange Noru Janmabhi Navidur Mrigayantopi Tivra Yoga Samadhina Munaya Padavim Yasya Nisange Noru Janmabhi Navidur Mrigayantopi Tivra Yoga Samadhina. Very good. Word for word. Munayaha, great sages. Padavim, path. Yasya, whose. Nisangena, by detachment. Uru Janmabhihi, after many births. Na, never. Viduhu, understood. Mrigayantaha, searching for. Api, certainly. Tivra Yoga, severe austerities. Samadhina, by trance. Translation. Narada Muni continued, after trying this process for many years, many births, and remaining unattached to material contamination, placing themselves continually in trance, and executing many types of austerities, many mystic yogis were unable to find the end of the path of God realization. There's no purport for this one, so we're moving on to number 32. But because we do not have it written, I will simply recite the verse. Ato nirvatatam esha nirbhandastava nishphala yatisyati bhavan kale shreyasam samupasthite. Word for word. Ata, you can repeat? Hereafter. Nirvatatam, just stop yourself. Esha, this. Nirbandha, determination. Tava, your. Nishfalaha, without any result. Yatishyati, in the future you should try. Bhavan, yourself. Kale, in due course of time. Shreyasam, opportunities. Samupastite, being present. Translation. For this reason, my dear boy, you should not endeavor for this. It will not be successful. It is better for you to go home. When you are grown up, by the mercy of the Lord, you will get a chance for this mystic performance. At that time, you may execute this function. Purport. Generally, a thoroughly trained person takes their spiritual perfection at the end of his life. According to the Vedic system, therefore, this is divided into 4 stages. In the beginning, one becomes a brahmachari, a student who studies Vedic knowledge under the authoritative guidance of a spiritual master. He then becomes a householder and executes household duties according to the Vedic process. Then the householder becomes a vanaprastha, and gradually, when he is mature, he renounces household life and vanaprastha life also and takes to sannyas, completely devoting himself to devotional service. Generally, people think that childhood is meant for enjoying life by engaging oneself in sports and play. Youth is meant for enjoying the company of young girls, and when one becomes old at the time of death, then he may try to execute devotional service or a mystic yoga process. But this conclusion is not for the devotees who are actually serious. The great sage Narada is instructing Dhruva Maharaj just to test him. Actually, the direct order is that from any point of one's life, one should begin rendering devotional service, but it is not the duty of the spiritual master, it is the duty of the spiritual master to test the disciple and see how seriously he desires to execute devotional service. Then he may be initiated. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So this is wonderful 2 verses, and it's the beginning of Dhruva Maharaj's journey in devotional service, right? Dhruva Maharaj, up to this point, his motivation is simply revenge to get back at his father and at his stepmother who have wronged him in a great way, right? By treating him roughly, his father by not intervening when his stepmother was speaking to him in such a harsh way, and his father not doing anything about it. So then he went to his mother, and his mother telling him that revenge in any physical way is useless, and the only way that one can actually attain the desire, his mother said, is to approach the Supreme Lord, who is supremely powerful, right? And he'll be able to fulfill your desires in any way you want. And so Dhruva Maharaj, he easily could have just, sat there being the victim of such a horrible crime done by his parents and be like, oh, how could they, I've been wrong, so I am depressed, I can't do anything, as any kid or any person nowadays would do. But he, being a Kshatriya and a very powerful being, he decided to take action and learn from the situation and go and do something about it. So he went to the forest. And Narada Muni is coming here and instructing him, basically trying to test his sincerity and his determination to see the Lord. Even though his motives may not be so pure, right? He's looking for revenge to get a kingdom greater than his grandfather, Lord Brahma. He is still determined to see the Lord. And so Narada Muni, taking advantage of this determination to see the Lord, even though his motives may not be the purest, is going to help him purify that desire, but still maintain his desire to see the Lord. So he's testing him. He's saying, why are you doing this? When you're older, then you can go to the forest, then you can focus on your spirituality and commit to some of these processes, right? So it's very important that the spiritual master tests the disciple or tests the sincere devotee in that way to make his faith stronger, to make his conviction stronger. Anything that's valuable doesn't come easily, right? You have to put in the work. And so the spiritual master or the Lord or Maya is always testing the devotee to make sure what his conviction is, what his goal is. There's another pastime that's described by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he's describing to Sanatana Goswami the Atmarama verse. It's a big section of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he's describing, in his description, he tells the story of Mrigari the hunter and Narada Muni, right? So in this other case, Narada Muni is also testing another individual. So the story goes that Narada Muni, he was traveling everywhere in spiritual material world, and he came across a hunter. But first, what he saw in the forest was many undead animals. There were animals, and they were injured to a point where they cannot move, and they're suffering and writhing in pain, but they're not dead, right? And so he's seeing this horrific scene of animals everywhere lying in suffering, condition, and he's looking for the hunter who's causing this. And so he's going, searching, and then in the process, he scares away all the animals because they see him, Narada Muni, coming. And Mrigari the hunter, he jumps out behind from a bush and says, what are you doing? You're disturbing my scene. So many animals were here that I was going to hunt, and you scared them away. So Narada Muni asked him, why are you performing, you're hunting, okay, but why are you not killing them? Why are you making them suffer in this way? And he said, this is what I learned when I was a kid, and I derived great pleasure seeing them suffer in that way. So Narada Muni, taking compassion on him, wanted to help this soul and show him the wrong, show him what's going to happen to him by performing this sinful activity. Hunter is already a very sinful occupation, let's say, right? The hunter knows he's killing these animals in this life, and in his next life he's going to have to suffer the same way. He's conscious of this. But to not kill the animals and make them suffer on top of that is a whole other realm of sinful activity. And so Narada Muni is showing him what his future births will look like, and how much he'll have to suffer, and how these animals will come and make him suffer in the same way. And so seeing this and understanding the sinful reactions that will be awaiting him, the hunter Mrigari, he becomes fearful. And so he asked Narada Muni, what should I do? What is there that I could do to stop this sinful reactions from coming to me? So Narada Muni goes even one step further and says that hunting in general, killing other living entities, isn't a very good mean of sustenance. There's so many other things you could do. And so Mrigari, taking heed of what Narada is saying and listening to him, he says, okay, so instruct me, what should I do? And Narada, the first thing he says is, you must break your bow. So the analogy is given, Prabhupada gives the analogy that Narada telling Mrigari to break his bow is the same as the spiritual master telling the disciple to give up the attachment to perform sinful activities. Right? We have an attachment, an anartha, to continue performing sinful activities. We have attachment to many different types of sinful activities, however gross or subtle they may be. And because of that, we perpetually continue performing those acts because of that attachment. So Narada told Mrigari, you must break your bow. Right? And Mrigari, of course, being a hunter, that's his only sole way of sustenance. That's how he gets his leathers and his furs, and he sells them and gets other things he needs. He gets all his meat from there. That's how he maintains his family. And so he asked Narada, if I give up my bow, what will I do? How will I maintain myself? How will I continue living? And so Narada tells him that don't worry about that. You'll be fully taken care of. Have faith in me. So Guru Nishtha is what Narada is emphasizing to Mrigari, that you must have faith in the instruction of the spiritual master. And if you have faith in the instruction of the spiritual master, then you're qualified for devotional service. Then you're qualified to hear the instructions of the spiritual master. So Mrigari, taking faith in Narada, he broke his bow. And then Narada began to instruct him and told him to give up all your worldly possessions, go to the bank of the Ganga and live there with your wife very peacefully, have a tulsi plant, worship her, and chant the Lord's names. And so Mrigari, having faith in the Lord, completely not thinking about his own sustenance or what he's going to do, he followed the instructions. He gave away all his worldly possessions, and he went to the bank of the river, made a small hut, and was there chanting the names of the Lord with his wife. And of course, Krishna taking care, and by Narada's arrangement, his causeless mercy, the villagers around, hearing of the transformation of Mrigari, taking great inspiration, they wanted to go serve the new devotee in Mrigari. And so they were bringing food and whatever things that that couple needed. And so they were taking care very nicely of Mrigari. And many years later, Narada Muni came back to visit his disciple. And when Mrigari saw Narada Muni coming at a distance, he ran to pay obeisances to Narada Muni. But on the path, there were little ants on his path. And so Mrigari knelt down, and with his chadar, he very carefully moved the ants out of the way so that he wouldn't step on them and that Narada Muni wouldn't step on them either. And so Narada saw the change of heart of Mrigari. Before he was half killing animals and seeing them suffer, and now he was even taking such precautions to make sure not even an ant suffers because of him. And so that was a transformation of the instruction of the spiritual master as well as devotional service. But there was a test. Break your bow was the test that Narada gave to Mrigari, that you must break your attachment to continue performing sinful activity. So if the disciple, if the devotee, sincere devotee, has that desire to break that attachment, it may be a gradual process, right? Krishna says in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 11, that even if I can just read it. Having awakened faith in the narrations of my glories, being disgusted with material activities, knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery, but still unable to renounce all sense enjoyment, my devotee should remain happy and worship me with great faith and conviction. Even though he is sometimes engaged in sense enjoyment, my devotee knows that all sense gratification leads to miserable results, and he sincerely repents for such activities. Right? So occasionally we still may fall into some sinful activity. We still may have difficulty giving up that attachment, sincere attachment that is accumulated over lifetimes. But understanding and hearing that all sense gratification leads to misery, and understanding that, we repent and we try to purify that consciousness. Eventually, we will be able to arrive at Krishna's lotus feet. Right? So this story of Mrigari and the story of Dhruva Maharaj, we learn so many very important things, that this test will constantly be coming. Srila Prabhupada, in a morning walk in Tehran, he was in a morning walk and he was asked if devotees are constantly tested in devotional service and why they're tested in devotional service. And Prabhupada emphasizes that the devotee is tested until his bhakti becomes strong, until he is completely free from all attachment. Because up to that point, Maya and Krishna and the agents are testing us to shaken and to make sure that we're unwavering in our desire for Krishna, unwavering in our desire to achieve his lotus feet. Until that point, we're constantly going through tests after tests after tests. Many times when we're chanting in the morning, when we're chanting our japa, some thoughts will be coming into our mind, and it's almost like it's harder to control your mind while chanting than it is other times of the day. That's because we're trying to reach Krishna, and Maya is making sure that that desire is strong. And so she's basically like, imagine you're going through your house, you're cleaning up your house, and you have so much piles of garbage, and you don't even know what's under this huge pile of garbage until you start cleaning. And you're like, wow, do I actually need this? No. Do I actually need this? No. Do I actually need this? No. And you're able to let go. So Maya, she's cleaning through your pile of garbage you have accumulated over lifetimes, and she's showing you these anarthas, saying, are you sure you want to get rid of this? Do you still have some attachment? And if you pay heed to that, desires that come into your mind, then that means you still have that attachment. But until that point where none of those, pictures or desires that come up attract you, then you will start to see the true form of the holy name and actually get taste for chanting the holy name. But as long as when those desires come, Maya comes with whatever nonsense she comes while you're chanting. And if you get distracted by that desire, then there's still some things that need to be purified. And tests will come one after another. Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur also says, right? He says, devotees experience the desire to commit sin because we're being tested. When the devotee understands that Maya is the serving of the Lord, we can understand that she's also helping us in our devotion by showing us that there's no other shelter besides the lotus feet of the Lord. Right? So there's no other shelter. Once Maya is trying to do that, and through her tests, she's showing us that there's no other shelter. We may try with so many other ways to control our mind, to control our desires, to do so many other things, but only devotional service to the lotus feet of the Lord will be able to purify these anarthas permanently, and then we'll be able to be fixed. Right? Srila Prabhupada, in that same morning walk, he talks about that faith means that you're meant for giving service to Krishna. You should stick to that service, that path, in spite of all impediments. Right? You should stick to that path of service in spite of all impediments. That is passing the test. Generally, just like we are meant for preaching Krishna consciousness, so there may be so many severe tests. But we remain determined. That is wanted. There may be so many impediments, punishments. Still, you should do that. That is wanted. That is test. Not that as soon as there is some difficulty, I give it up. There may be severe test, but still, we should not give it up. We must go on. That is determination. So he's giving the way by which we can pass the test is by remaining fixed in our devotional service, not becoming wavered, right? Sometimes we may think that a test may come, and if I'm able to continue thinking about Krishna, if I'm able to continue focusing on him, But devotional service is what Prabhupada is stressing here. If we continue fixed in our determination to continue performing devotional service. Because he says faith means that you understand that you're meant for giving some service to Krishna. You understand that, Jivera Nitya Swarupa Hoy, Krishnara Nitya Das. The eternal Swarup, the eternal form of the soul is to be Krishna's servant. And so when we understand that and we have firm faith in that, then we can stay firm. And it doesn't matter what test or what punishment may come our way. We remain fixed in devotional service and we desire nothing else. Right? There's many other examples as well as here Narada is telling Dhruva Maharaj that when you're old, then you can focus on Krishna consciousness. Then you can follow some path of self-realization. There was one discussion where Srila Prabhupada was speaking to a reporter. I don't remember if it was in Venezuela or somewhere. And the reporter was saying that I see you have so many young people here. Why is that? And then Srila Prabhupada said that I see in your he just shot right back. I see in your universities you have so many young people. Why is that? And the reporter says, well, that's the age for education. And Prabhupada said, yes, so that's the age of self-realization. Prabhupada said, old. He said, what does old mean? And the reporter couldn't really say, He said, if you're, up in the years. And Prabhupada just cut right off. He said, no, old means you're about to die. He said, can you say that you're older than me? Can you say that you're younger than me? Can you say exactly when you're supposed to die? So he says, so we're all old. I may die today, I may die tomorrow, you may die tomorrow, I may live another 100 years. Right? So he says, we're all old. So we must take the Krishna consciousness now. Because at any moment, Krishna might take us, and we have to be ready. So with this whole lifetime, we're preparing for that moment of death to be focused on the lotus feet of the Lord and not think of anything else. But when that moment will come, we don't know, so we can't put it off for a later day that may never come, right? Will we see 60? Will we see 50? Will we see 35? We don't know. So we must prepare now, just as if it's coming today, if it's coming tomorrow. And that way we can be ready, right? So there's many other stories. There's another story actually with Narada Muni in which this principle is very well explained, is that there was one man. And when he was very young, Narada went to him and said, please chant the holy name of the Lord and give up all material attachment. And the boy said, later on, when I'm older, after, I've gone through life, then I'll chant the holy name of the Lord and then I'll focus on him. And so Narada said, okay. So he came back after the person had kids and he was, a grandfather already. And he said, oh, do you remember me? I asked you to chant the holy name of the Lord and give up material attachment and focus on him. And he says, yes, but right now, I'm helping my sons take care of their kids. I'm, being a grandfather. I'm always busy taking care of the grandchildren, making sure everybody's happy, making sure everybody's together. The family stays together is very important. So I'll do it later when I'm going to die. And so Narada Muni came back, and the person was just about to die. And the person was so overwhelmed with so many different worries he had. Who will take care of my wife? Who will take care of my kids? Who will take care of the grandkids? Who will take care of the house? And so he wasn't able to focus on the Lord. And he said, I'll do it in my next birth. And so Narada Muni came back, and the person was reincarnated as a cow in that same family. And so he came, my dear friend, do you remember me? Please chant the holy name of the Lord and give up material attachment and think of him only. And the person says, I can't do that now. I'm so, preoccupied taking care of the family. They're so dependent on me. Without me, they wouldn't have any milk to eat, no ghee products, no yogurt. I'm so needed. I can't do it now. So Narada Muni came back later. In the next life, he was reborn as a dog in that same house. And so Narada Muni said, my dear friend, now you're reborn as a dog. You have no excuses. Chant the holy name of the Lord. Give up material attachment. Give up attachment to this house, to this family. They don't need you anymore. They are all, they've long forgotten who you are. He says, no, I'm so important. I need to take care of the house. Any intruder comes, I bark, I warn, right? I give so much pleasure to my great grandkids who are now grown up. You know, I go with them to the forest. I go with them whenever they need to go anywhere. I take care of the house very carefully. You know, I can't go now. They need me. And so Narada Muni said, okay. He comes back in his next life and he is reborn as a snake. And so Narada Muni came and he saw that the very great grandkids of that man were killing that snake. They saw the snake in the corner of the shed and they killed the snake. And so Narada Muni came to him and said, look, the very people you've been protecting for 4 lifetimes have now killed you, they themselves. They don't want you here. Do you realize your attachment is so useless? And only at that moment did the person say, yes, I understand. And was able to give up his attachment to this house. He was born 4 times because of the intense attachment to the house and his family and how it's so important and they need me. Right? So he was able to put off Krishna consciousness for 4 lifetimes because of that intense attachment, even with the association with Narada Muni. So we can understand from this story that we cannot remain attached. Just like Mrgari did, we have to break the bow, break the attachment to continue sinful activity and the continued attachment to this world of samsara, of non-stop karma, and take seriously to the path of Krishna consciousness. And then only then will we truly be able to progress. All right? There's many other stories. There's a story also of Valmiki. Valmiki is the great sage who wrote the Ramayana, right? He was a dacoit. A dacoit is a robber who doesn't only rob people but kills them, has pleasure in hurting them in the process of robbing them. Those are dacoits. And so he used to stay on the edge of the forest, and any travelers who would come by, he would rob them and then kill them, just for pleasure. Right? So Narada Muni came by one day, and immediately Valmiki, I forgot what his name was before he became Valmiki, he jumped out, and he wanted to rob Narada. Right? And so Narada, there's a whole discussion. There's many different versions of the story. Some people say that he asked Narada what was the most valuable thing he had, and Narada said, I have the holy name. And so Narada told him, he said, okay, give me the holy name. And so Narada said, please chant the holy name of Rama. And so Valmiki, he tried to enunciate the sound Rama, but he could not because he was so sinful. He was so sinful that he could not even say Rama. And so Narada Muni, he said, okay, then say Mara. Mara is the name of death, or a dead body, right? So Mara is death, death, death. So Valmiki was very happy. He said, okay, that I can say. So he would say Mara, 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 death, death, death. But if you hear it just the opposite, Mara, Mara becomes Rama, Rama, Rama. Mara, 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 Rama, 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 Rama. Right? So by just saying Mara, by saying death, he was chanting the holy name of the Lord, and he became purified by associating with Narada Muni. And so Narada Muni came many years later, and he was in great ecstasy, non-stop chanting Rama, 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 Rama. And so he became the great sage who was able to see the pastime of Lord Ramachandra and wrote the entire Ramayana, even into the future. There's a pastime that Valmiki, when Sita was banished from Ayodhya, after she was saved from Lanka, she came back. There's the pastime how Ram, right, he overheard the Brahmanas talking, how Ram takes back his wife after she was spending with someone else, right? And so being the perfect king, he wanted to show example, so he banished her to the forest. And she went to the hermitage of sage Valmiki. And so Valmiki, knowing that this was part of the Ramayana, very happily took her into his ashram and nurtured her, took care of her. She gave birth to Ram's 2 sons, Lava and Kush, right? And he taught them the Ramayana. And so there's a whole pastime, Lava and Kush pastime. But finally, when they came before Lord Ramachandra, what they started doing is when they found out from Valmiki Muni that Lord Ramachandra was their father, they asked Valmiki Muni, how can we get to know him? How can we come in contact with him? And so he said, just go to Ayodhya and chant the Ramayana. So they would go in the marketplaces and they would sing the Ramayana. And everyone would come and listen. It was very amazing. So eventually they become more and more famous, so they got taken all the way to the court of Lord Ramachandra. And they were coming every day and reciting the Ramayana, reciting the Ramayana, reciting the Ramayana. And they got all the way up to the part of the present day. So they went from the very beginning when Dasharat, they did the Ashramita Yagya, all the way up to the present day. And then one of the verses, it says very clearly, it says, and now those 2 boys stand before you singing your glories. It's like such an amazing pastime, right? And so Ram, understanding that that's his sons, right, went and embraced them, and the story continues. But all because of the association of Narada Muni and the instruction he gave to Valmiki when he was a dacoit. So many pastimes of Narada Muni testing and helping devotees. And so this way he came to Dhruva Maharaj, seeing the potential for devotional service and seeing the determination that Dhruva Maharaj had to see the Lord. Even though his motivation was revenge, he had that sincere determination that I am going to see the Lord. What he was going to ask for was still not so pure. And so this instruction, we can see that doesn't matter what our motivation may be, we should always turn to the Lord for any of our desires. And with a sincere desire to please the Lord and to see Him or to associate with Him, those desires will become purified. We shouldn't feel that there's something that we cannot go to the Lord for. Right? We have to understand that He is our only shelter. Just like a baby, right? If he's tired, hungry, dirty, doesn't matter what, he'll turn to the mother. For a solution for all problems. You know, like my daughter, doesn't matter what's going on, mama, 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 non-stop, right? Because she is the solution for everything. We should feel like that desperate, that helpless to the Lord. Doesn't matter what we want. We want a new car, we want whatever. We should feel that He's the only person who can give it to us. He's the only person who's going to give it to us. Give it or not give it, but He's the only person. We know no one else. We know no other way. We know that through our own efforts, there's nothing that we can do. And so if we feel so strongly sheltered and dependent on the Lord, then whatever desire we come to the Lord with, He will purify, and He will do what's best for us. And by the process of devotional service, just like we'll see in the future of this chapter, Dhruva Maharaj understood, right? He says that beautiful verse, he says to Krishna, he says, I came looking for broken glass and you gave me diamonds. Right? I came to you asking for pieces of broken glass. So in the same way, when the Lord sees fit, He will make us realize that what we're asking for, what we wanted, is useless and give us what's actually beneficial. Right? There's another purport of Srila Prabhupada, and especially for that, for the 11th, in the 11th canto. He's talking about how we have to become so firm in our determination, our devotional service, that we have to understand that for this sickness of material miseries of life, just because we want to get out of this material misery or this material world is not make us eligible for bhakti. The only thing that will make us eligible for love of God is the desire for love of God. Right? It's kind of like if you had a girlfriend or a friend, right? A wife. And she's only with you because her ex was worse. Would you be happy? Right? No. You want her to love you because you're you, not because you're not as bad. Right? Right? So Krishna doesn't want us to love Him because He's not as bad as this material world. He wants us to love Him because He's Him and He's perfect. So just because we're discussing with this material world doesn't make us eligible for Krishna. Understand? There's only one cause of bhakti. There's only one way we're going to get bhakti is by pure desire for bhakti. All the other things don't matter. Right? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very clearly says, right? He says, the last verse of Sikshastakam. Yeah, Shishiva Padratam Pinastu Mama Darshanam Marmahatam Karotu Va Yatata Tata Vidadhatu Lampata Matprananatas Seva Napara. Doesn't matter if you treat me roughly, or keep me away from your vision. Right? Doesn't matter what you do. I only desire you. Right? Nothing else. So it doesn't matter. We don't have any other motive when it comes to bhakti. We have no other desire to please the Lord. It's not that we're tired of this material world or we're tired with the relationships in this material world and that's why we turn to Krishna as a solution. That's not love. Right? When you love someone with a desire for something separate, when you love someone because of some other reason, that's not pure love. It's just the better option. It's like, what would you rather have, pizza or pasta? Oh, okay, I want this. No, that's not. If you full surrender, full love to Krishna, it's because you only love Him. Then it's worthwhile, and then bhakti will come. So Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, when he's listing the different tests that may come in this material world, part of it is karma, jnana, moksha. Right? So even liberation is a distraction from bhakti. Liberation means coming out of this material world. It's a distraction. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes many times, he says, that the devotee, right, sees liberation as an impediment, right? Because for the devotee, pure love of God, it can be anywhere. It can be in this material world. It can be anywhere. It can be anywhere in this universe. He has no desire that, oh no, I only want to love you in this situation, right? I only want to be with you in this situation, right? Only when everything's nice. It's like, what's it called? A friend in need is a friend indeed, right? So in bad times, those people who stick around you, that's true. But when people are only there when everything's nice, when you got money, when you can, pay for dinner, that's not a friend. That's not a relationship. But when they want to be around you all the time, doesn't matter if you're super sad and upset and grumpy, or when you're really happy and you're showing them love, doesn't matter. When they want to be around you, that's true love. Right? So we cannot, when we love Krishna, when we want him only and nothing else, then that's true love. Not because other things are bad. So that's why Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, he describes moksha as an impediment for bhakti. Because there should be no conditions. Unconditional love. Anyabhilashita shunyam. Right? Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karma ganavritam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhaktiruttamam. That is the true love, as said in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Right? Free from karma jnana, from any desire for give and return, from any desire that that you are that I want knowledge or I want fame, gain. Only anukulyena krishnanushilanam. It's a whole verse just to describe one sentence, right? When all you desire is to please the Lord. Anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhaktiruttamam. Only when the only thing you desire is to please the Lord, then that's pure bhakti, bhaktiruttamam. That's the purest form of bhakti. Anything else is not. Rupa Goswami is so specific on that. So we can understand, sometimes we think that, becoming disgusted with this material world, and just because we don't want to continue living here, or because we had some bad experiences with other relationships or other places, we got cheated, we got robbed, whatever, someone died in the family, right? That's just the very beginning. That's one of the reasons Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that someone will turn to his service, right? The distressed, the diseased, those in desire of wealth, and those looking for those in desire of wealth? And those in desire of knowledge, right? The jnanis, right? Those are the people who will turn from him. So that's just the very beginning. That's what's going to put you on the path. But then after that, you have to understand that all that was nonsense, and only Krishna is your goal. Yeah? Then we become qualified to have bhakti. Only when we have zero desire for anything else. And it was very touching to read that, because, sometimes we don't think of it that way. We focus on the negatives, right? There's always remember Krishna and never forget him. Sometimes we're overly focused on the never forget him part. All the don'ts rather than the do's. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do sinful activities, follow the four regulative principles, don't break them, you have to chant 16 rounds, right? It's all the have to's, rather than I want to, the positive of everything. And only when the positive becomes the 100% rather than the 20%, then we become eligible for bhakti. Right? In sadhana bhakti, we have the mix. Right? We want the 100%. So as much as the positive is only taking up 20%, that means 80% we should be doing not to forget Krishna. That means we're engaged in other devotional service. We're doing things that may be indirect devotional service. Right? But the 20%, what is 20%? Mangalarti, chanting your rounds, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class, Darshanarti, right? Direct service to the Lord, that's the 20%. But the rest of it we should fill up with, don't forget Krishna. So we should be doing things that make us not forget Krishna. And what is that? Following the four regulative principles, right? Associating with devotees, not associating, right? As Rupa Goswami says, right? Not to associate with people, worldly minded people. But we want that 20% to increase to 100%, so we no longer have the negatives. There's no need for the negatives. Just as he describes those in Raganuga Bhakti, there's no need for sadhana bhakti anymore. There's no need, right? Goodbye morning bath. There's that famous shloka, right? Because why? Because it's not needed. 24 hours a day, they're conscious of Krishna. They don't sleep. 24 hours a day, they're conscious of Krishna, so there's no need to, okay, now you need to chant your Gayatri. Now you need to chant your rounds. Why? Because they've been chanting since yesterday. They haven't stopped chanting. When it now start? I started yesterday. Right? There's no need for them to follow these regulative schedules because they never stopped. They don't need to go for Mangalarti because they're always in Mangalarti. They're always thinking about Krishna. But this cannot be faked. This cannot be mimicked or enacted. This is something very natural. And only when someone's at the stage of Raganuga Bhakti, then he's at that point where he's 100% positive, 100% always remember Krishna. Because he does. Yeah? And something else, just to emphasize that this cannot be enacted. Srila Prabhupada mentions it many times, but also Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur mentioned it many times. Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions it many times, that even someone on the Uttamadhikari platform, someone who is a Raganuga Bhakti, may continue performing all these ritualistic and normal activities, or sadhana bhakti, for the benefit of those who follow him. That is Acharya. Right? He's always conscious of the Lord. But he will say, okay, now I'm going to chant my 16 rounds. So everybody else can chant 16 rounds by seeing him. He's always chanting. Now I'm going to go to Mangalarti. He wakes up early, so he goes to Mangalarti, so people see and will follow his example. Even though probably in his room, what was he doing all night? Like Srila Prabhupada used to do? Translate Bhagavatam, translate Chaitanya Charitamrita. Was there any need for him to go to Mangalarti? To think of the Lord? No, he was constantly, eternally absorbed in the thoughts of the Lord. He would come to see the Lord's form as the deity. He was very happy to do that. But it wasn't something that he had to do to put him in the consciousness of the Lord. He was always fully conscious. But he did it as Acharya, to show by example. That's what Acharya means. Achar means by your behavior, and Acharya means showing by your behavior. So that is Acharya, by showing by example. So this story of Dhruva Maharaj is going to show us many amazing lessons, and this one in particular is that test, the testing aspect of devotional service, the testing aspect of sadhana bhakti. Maya is going to test us, the spiritual master will test us, other devotees will test us. And this test is not something that's an impediment, but it's something to make sure that we stay strong. If everything is nice and easy, we sometimes lose interest. Right? Something comes too easy, but if you have to work for it, it's more valuable to you. So when tests come, it should be a way for you to refocus the mind, to reevaluate your values and what you want and what your goal is, and then put yourself on the right path. Krishna will never put a test that you cannot overcome. Right? Maya, she's serving Krishna. She wants to help you, and so she'll put a test there that maybe you won't, see the benefit of it right now, but 20 years, 50 years, somehow you will come to see and learn from that. And so your bhakti will become stronger, your conviction in the service of the Lord and the instructions of the spiritual master will become stronger. And therefore, you will become more convicted in bhakti, in devotional service. Yeah? So that's all I had to say. If there's anyone with any questions or comments, it would be wonderful. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yes. You spoke about our ideal and also how we are not there, which always implies that we have to follow a process to cross that distance. And yesterday, Gaura Mohan Prabhu, he was also emphasizing the aspect of patience. So can you speak about patience?
The glory of patience in devotional service?
Yeah, and like what it takes. I feel like it takes a few qualities which we have to develop, maybe also a few realizations which we have to have.
There's so many, but
Yes.
Something that I always find very helpful is that one thing that's a great hindrance to patience is when we think that something will change. It's kind of like you're in a race and you're trying to get to the end of the race, and that's what's making you impatient, that I'm going to get somewhere, that something's going to change. I'm going to be able to stop running, right? But devotional service, there is no end to the race. The goal of devotional service is more devotional service. The goal of chanting japa is to be able to chant more japa. The goal of serving the Lord is to be able to get more service to the Lord. And so by understanding that what we're doing right now is the goal, the only thing we need to change is our mentality, how much we enjoy it, how much we have taste for it, how much we're able to relish it. right? It's not like, okay, you know, I can't wait till I get second initiation so I can stop cleaning the toilets. I can't wait till I get... No, that's complete nonsense. We should never think that way. There is no difference. It's devotional service, right? And, you know, okay, I can't wait to, you know, become a sannyasi so I can stop doing service in the temple. No, that's what's going to make you more impatient, right? You should enjoy every second of every service you're doing, because you're doing what you will be doing forever, and what you should want to be doing forever. And so all you need to do is work on your mind. There's no something's going to change. The only thing that's going to change is you're going to love doing it, and you're going to like to do it even more, and you're going to be looking for more. So by just stopping that rat race of like, what's next, what's tomorrow? No, it's just, I have so much service to do. I'm so happy doing it. Let me change my attitude and actually enjoy doing it today, so I can enjoy doing it tomorrow, and I'll enjoy doing it more day after tomorrow. Yeah, that's what I find is very helpful for me. Whenever I feel like, oh, this is a lot, then I think, wait, nothing's going to change. It's just going to get harder. It's just going to get more. Like harder in the sense of more service, not harder in the way that mentally it's harder. Right? I was doing a lot of service yesterday. I'll do a lot more service tomorrow, and I'm very happy about that. Make sense? Exactly. We're doing what we're supposed to do and what we will be doing in the future. We just have to switch. So impatience come when we're waiting for something to change. It's not going to change. It's our attitude that has to change. So we can take our time and just focus and be present in whatever we're doing. That's the goal of life. Chanting japa is the goal of life, is chant more japa. So nothing's going to change. It's not some other situation that you magically know. It's something we need to carefully think about and be conscious about when we're doing it. Make sense, Prabhu? Any other question or comment? Yes, Prabhu.
Can you also mentioned this point of Acharya, and gave example of Srila Prabhupada, and Ananda Krishna Prabhu, once he said that Prabhupada didn't go for Mangalarati. So I don't know, maybe he went sometimes and sometimes not, I don't know. But Srila Prabhupada was an Acharya, so implying that he had to be conscious of what he's doing and how others perceive that. And over time I'm noting also that this is very, very important in our ashram life, temple life. So maybe you can also say something about that. When is it important to set that external example? When it is not important?
Well, until we get to the point where for us it's not important, which is Raganuga Bhakti, we should be endeavoring to do it all the time, right? So the Prabhupada, for him, it was something that he had to make that distinction because he was doing it for other people. Make sense? Right? He was already at that platform that for him himself, it wasn't something that important because he was always preaching, he was always doing devotional service. If he wasn't a Mangalarati, it's because he was doing devotional service. Understand? But if you see in the early days, he was doing everything himself. He was doing all the kirtans, doing all the cleaning, doing all the cooking, everything. When people started taking over and started doing more, then he was able to focus on other things. So if he would have been in a temple where you saw devotees aren't going for Mangalarati and aren't enthusiastic to be there, he would be there himself to give that inspiration to them. But if he sees they're inspired because of other devotees doing it or other senior devotees doing it, and that's not the need, then he'll put his focus somewhere else where they need that inspiration. Does that make sense? Right? At that time, the inspiration that was needed was books, right? Preaching. And so for that, he put all his focus into that. And he was transcribing all night. He was doing his transcribing. Right? And he saw the devotees were always going to Mangalarati. They were very focused. They were inspired. But there's many stories, like in Vrindavan, where people weren't. And he himself would go to the rooms, wake them up, and say, hey, let's go to Mangalarati. He was up anyway. Understand? So the Acharya was able to see what's the need of the devotees, and in that way, give them the association in those areas where they need that. He himself was fully conscious of the Lord. Understand? And it's not that he never went to Mangalarati. Of course he went many times, but if he didn't, in those times he didn't, he was definitely, we know that he was engaged by the stories of his personal servants. Right? But he was able to differentiate where was needed association in what way so that they would be inspired in that area where he's trying to inspire them, where they're lacking. And that's his job. But until we get to that point that for us it's not important, we don't have to think about that. Right? We should just be endeavoring to do everything because for us we're still not conscious of the Lord. Right? So, like, for example, I'm not going to go to Mangalarti because I have to chant my rounds. That's not a befitting thing. If there's some special service that day that maybe excludes that, that's a different thing. But no, I want to chant my rounds. But no, what about the other, 16, 17 hours in a day where you're not Krishna conscious? How are you going to fill that time? How are you going to be Krishna conscious at that time? That's why we have so many engagements in the day that will keep us Krishna conscious at least for 5-6 hours in a day. Right, you think about it, Mangalarti is 45 minutes, then chanting japa another hour, then darshanarti another hour, Bhagavatam class another hour, then you have your 16 rounds, that's another 2 hours, so that's already 7 hours in a day, right? And then you have your devotional service, maybe another 2 hours. So you manage to fill up that much time of your day with devotional service, that's very good. But if you start interchanging that, then you're going to cut those 7-8 hours into 2-3 hours. Is that good for you? Are you conscious of Krishna the rest of the day? Understand? So until we get to the point where we can actually show example and it's not important for us, then we're not able to interchange or exchange things, But when Acharya gets to that point, then yeah, he was able to put the priorities in line. What's important for his preaching, what's important for him. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So finish there. Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Brian Prabhu, the wooden clock is off? Because I was looking at the wooden clock and then I looked at the digital clock. It's 50.